brief introduction to this introductory song. Joe Hill was an organizer with the International Workers of the World, better known by the nickname the Wobblies, in the years before World War I. He was also a songwriter who wrote a number of union songs that are still sung today. He was arrested and executed in Utah by the authorities for a murder that he probably did not commit. His reputed last words before he was executed were, "Don't mourn, organize." I dreamed I saw Joe Hill last night, alive as you or me. Says I, but Joe, you're 10 years dead. I never died, said he. I never died, said he. The copper bosses caught you, Bill. They killed you, Bill, says I. Takes more than guns to kill a man, says Joe. I didn't die, says Joe. I didn't die. And standing there, as large as life, and smiling with his eyes, he said what they forgot to kill went on to organize, went on to organize. From San Diego up to Maine, in every mine and mill, where workers strike and organize, it's there you'll find Joe Hill. It's there you'll find Joe Hill. I dreamed I saw Joe Hill last night, alive as you or me. Says I, but Joe, you're 10 years dead. I never died, said he. I never died, said he.
Thanks, Steve. Wonderful introduction. Well, welcome everyone to our Sunday worship in the dog days of summer. Whenever we are called together to join in this spiritual community of hope, courage, and compassion, we like to start off by using the sound of the singing bowl. Whenever the fellowship gathers together, we light a chalice, the symbol of the light of truth and the warmth of love. This morning, our opening words are by Reverend Jacob Trapp, who read them together responsively. I'll read the words in white in regular type, and we'll all read the words together in italicized yellow. To worship is to stand in awe under a heaven of stars.
Or before a flower, or a leaf in sunlight, or a grain of sand. I invite everyone to rise in body or spirit and join in the sing-along. I'm going to tell you the story behind this classic labor song as well in the 1930s in Harlan County, Kentucky. There's a great coal miner strike. It pitted the miners not only against the mining companies, but against the local sheriff, who was named J.W. Baird. And he had a gang of thugs who terrorized miners' families. One of those families, the wife of a union organizer, was named Florence Reese. Her home was invaded by the sheriff and some of his goons who were looking for her husband, who had slipped out the back door. And after the sheriff and his men had left several hours later, she got the idea for this song set to the melody of an old gospel song. She looked around for something to write the words down on, and all she could find was an old calendar. The song is still sung today, and it's relevant not only to union struggles, but to all of our struggles these days. I invite you to learn the chorus here. Which side are you on? 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 Come all you good old miners, the news to you I'll tell, how the good old union has come and here to dwell. Oh, which side are you on? 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 My daddy was a miner, now I'm a miner's son. I'll stick with the union till every battle's won. Oh, which side are you on? 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 They say in Harlan County there are no neutrals there. You'll either be a union man or a thug for J.H. Blair. Oh, which side are you on? 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 Don't stand for those old bosses. Don't listen to their lies. Us working folks don't have a chance unless we organize. Oh, which side are you on? Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
Little side story. My wife and I are involved in a group that organizes protests every now and then. And the beginning of this year, when the incidents started happening in Minnesota with 2 people killed by ICE agents, we decided to have a small protest that Martha and I organized in front of City Hall. And the small protest ended up getting about 500 people to show up there. And one of the set of people there were a brass band that someone organized, and they played, along with 500 people chanting the chorus, that particular song. Yes, very memorable. So, announcements. In the life of the spiritual community, there are some important things to know. Everyone matters, and everyone is welcome here. We gathered together this morning because we get to meet in person only once a month on this, the 4th Sunday. In this room, we get to listen, to learn, to pray, and sing. And afterwards, we get to eat lunch here and meet new friends. The service is being recorded and will be available on the Fellowship's website. In addition to our in-person services, we also meet via Zoom on the 2nd Sunday of the month at 10:30 a.m. As a spiritual community of hope, courage, and compassion, we believe compassion is a fine feeling, but made even better when we give it some power to actually do some good. So to live out our mission and do some good in the world, the Fellowship sets aside money to provide ongoing financial support to the Sunrise Navigation Center, which helps people experiencing homelessness find housing and other essential services. And every quarter, the fellowship also raises money to support a different social outreach program. This quarter, the funds are going to the Sustainable Food Center, which supports food access through farmers markets, nutrition incentives, and cooking education. If you wish to contribute to the basket, they will be available at the side of the room, where it will be back there after the service. Thank you in advance for your generosity to this. And finally, thank you to Sylvia Lawrence for the beautiful flowers this morning.
I think we know the drill on responsive readings. I want to be with the people who submerge in the task.
Who go into the fields of harvest and work and row and pass the bags along.
Who stand in the line and haul in their places.
We're not parlors and field visitors, but Lord and comforter when the food was coming out or the fire to be put out.
The work of the world is common as mud. Botched, it smears the hands, crumbles to dust.
But the thing worth doing well has not shaped and satisfies, clean and evident.
Greek amphoras for wine or oil. Hopi vases that held corn are put in museums, but you know they were made to be used.
The pitcher cries for water to carry, and a person's work that is real.
This morning, we gather to pray and reflect. We gather today as we are, wherever we are in our life's journey. We gather in compassion for ourselves and for all of those in this country and around the world who yearn for justice, truth, and for democracy, and for food, shelter, and safety. If some of you are feeling particularly burdened, or if somehow you are feeling less than you want to be, hear these words of assurance. We need not be perfect. We need not be whole. We need not be 100% all of the time, or even most of the time. We need not even be right as others judge what is right. But if we are together in love, we are beautiful in the eyes of one another and in the eyes of the holy. We gather to rejoice with those whose hearts are light and laughing, because for now, the clouds of despondency are parted, and the sunlight or the starlight is shining through. Any community of faith must believe it has a higher purpose, and if ours is to do what we can to make the world a better place and help each other become our best selves, then may it be so today in this sacred place on this beautiful planet, our only home. Amen and blessed be. Our speaker today, Steve Brooks, has been a longtime favorite of this community. He has performed here numerous times, including as recently as last month. At this point, I'm supposed to introduce him with a bit of his biography. And rather than just read the words from last month's service again, I thought I'd see if I could find something a little more fresh to do. So I looked at Wikipedia and said, is there a Steve Brooks page? And if so, what does it say about him? Now, it turns out Steve Brooks is mentioned a couple places on Wikipedia, but alas, there is no Steve Brooks page on Wikipedia, which is one of the flaws of Wikipedia I hope someone fixes at some time soon. So, failing that, you can probably guess what I did next. ChatGPT. What can you tell me about Steve Brooks? And the results are kind of interesting. I'll read some excerpts of it here. And then Steve can correct me and tell me what is real, what is hallucinations. But it's an amusing take on what Steve is like. So first it says, I assume you mean the Austin base folk singer, songwriter Steve Brooks, not the heavy metal guitarist.
So far, so good.
So far, so good. He's an interesting figure because he sits at the intersection of folk music, political satire, journalism, humor, and Unitarian Universalist thought.
Wow.
Yeah. He's a singer-songwriter in the Texas troubadour tradition. His music tend towards literate storytelling rather than slick country, thoughtful lyrics, humor, social commentary, love songs, philosophical themes, and observations about Texas and American life. He is essentially a combination of Garth Brooks and Mel Brooks.
You stole
Well,
that line from him.
it's quoting him. So Steve Brooks was born in Chicago, raised in York, Pennsylvania. He learned guitar at 16 by listening to Pete Seeger records. He left for college in California. He eventually returned to join in the 3 Mile Island protest, sang with Pete Seeger on stage, and was convicted as one of the 3 Mile Island 9. Sometime you'll have to tell us more of that story. What strikes me as especially distinctive about Brooks is the music is only an expression of his larger intellectual personality. Journalism, social activism, folk music, humor, philosophy, and UU speaking all seem to have the same basic impulse. Observe the world closely, question the conventional interpretation, and find a memorable way of saying what you've noticed. Given some of the subjects he's been exploring recently, the meaning of life, secular spirituality, social responsibility, cooperation, technological change, and the role of storytelling that shapes society, there are many aspects of Brooks' works beyond music that you may find particularly interesting. With that, I give you Steve Brooks.
Thank you, Mike. I didn't hear anything that was blatantly hallucinatory there. Well, we're going to get some commentary from Merle Haggard here. It's a hard job getting by with 2 kids and a wife. Seems I've been a working man dang near my whole life. I keep on working long as these 2 hands are fit to use. I drink a little beer in the tavern, sing a little bit of this working man blues. I keep my nose to the grindstone, work hard every day. Get a little tired on the weekend after I draw my pay, but I go back working. Come Monday morning, I'm right back with the crew. I drink a little beer in the evening, I sing a little bit of this working man blues. Sometimes I think about leaving, do a little running around. Throw my bills out the window, catch a train to another town, but I go back working. Gotta buy my kids a brand new pair of shoes. I drink a little beer in the tavern, I cry a little bit of these working man blues. Hey, the working man like me, ain't never been on welfare, that's one place he will not be. He'll just keep working, long as his 2 hands are fit to use. He'll drink a little beer in the tavern and sing a little bit of them working man blues. He'll drink a little beer in the tavern, sing a little bit of this working man blues. And unto Adam he said, because thou hast eaten of the tree, cursed is the ground for thy sake. In sorrow shalt thou eat of it all the days of thy life. In the sweat of thy face shalt thou eat bread, till thou return unto the ground. For dust thou art, and unto dust shalt thou return. In one of the founding stories of Western civilization, a wrathful God spits out an unmistakable message about labor. Work is a curse. When the first man is cast out of the garden, his punishment is to labor all the days of his life. The very word labor comes down to us unchanged from the original Latin. It means toil, hardship, distress. Just in case the meaning isn't perfectly clear, Yahweh also curses the woman with a different form of labor. I will greatly multiply thy sorrow and thy conception. In sorrow thou shalt bring forth children. Now, compare that biblical conception of labor with this very different view of the spiritual meaning of work. In the beginning, God ordained that man should labor, not as a curse, but as a blessing, not as a punishment, but as a means of development, physically, mentally, morally. These words come from the oath taken by the Knights of Labor. Founded in 1869 in Philadelphia, it was one of the first efforts to launch a nationwide labor union. I bring up these opposing quotes to remind us that Americans have always had love-hate relationships with work. Since our Puritan days, we've seen it as a duty and a source of human dignity. Nonetheless, the American dream is to save up enough money so that at the earliest possible age, we can quit working for good. From the first time we hear the recess bell, we are taught that work and play are opposites. We work because we have to. We play because we want to. How do we resolve this contradiction? Is human labor a boon or a bane? The answer, I want to suggest, is that it can go either way. What makes us view it as a blessing or a curse is not so much the work itself, but who we're working for. We all have heard the Zen proverb that before enlightenment, one chops wood and carries water, and that after enlightenment, one chops wood and carries water. I don't claim to be a Zen monk, but I can tell you that I enjoy chopping wood if its destination is my barbecue pit. I wouldn't enjoy it nearly so much if I were working for a lumber boss, especially if the boss was ignoring safety rules and making me work unpaid overtime. Even in times of high unemployment, polls show that more than half of all Americans are unhappy with their jobs. The Bureau of Labor Statistics reports that 16 million of us are currently working for ourselves. I quit my last day job as a newspaper reporter back in 1990. I have been a freelance writer ever since. I've had no benefits. I've never earned as much as I did before 1990, but I consider it a fair trade. My compensation is that I've had time to pursue my other career, my music. And while wage slaves are stuck in traffic on I-35 or Mopac, I am commuting from my home office to my coffee pot. It's hardly a new idea that working for yourself can be more satisfying than working for a boss. In a strange way, it was none other than Karl Marx who set the stage for today's entrepreneurs. Writing in 1844, when peasants were moving from farms to factories, he coined the expression alienated labor. Marx was the first economist who paid any attention to the laborer's point of view. Work, he proposed, adds meaning and happiness to human life, as long as we're working for ourselves. We become alienated when we go to work for someone else. We are producing goods that have no meaning to us, in jobs that are soulless and repetitive, just for the money. You don't have to be a Marxist to feel the sting of his words long before Dilbert, The Office, or Amazon warehouses. The worker sinks to the level of a commodity and becomes indeed the most wretched of commodities. He is at home when he is not working, and when he is working, he is not at home. Unfortunately, Marx did a better job of diagnosing alienation than prescribing a cure. Marxist revolutions have generally led to worse forms of it. A more effective remedy might be self-employment. But entrepreneurship is not for everyone. For every American worker who is self-employed, there are 10 who are not. There is a third way to end the alienation of labor. It is perhaps the most fruitful approach of all, because it is the path that created the American middle class. It can be summed up in a single word: organize. Which brings us to the U.S. labor movement. Since 1619, when Polish craftsmen went on strike in Jamestown to win the right to vote, the story of unions has been the ongoing effort of workers to take more control over their work and to make sure they're fairly rewarded for it. The history of American unions would take much more time than we have this morning, but a good bit of it can be summed up in the story of Labor Day and how it is that we came to celebrate it on the first Monday in September. Coffee and labor are inseparable. Labor Day was the first federal holiday that didn't commemorate either a war or a dead president. Samuel Gompers, the first president of the American Federation of Labor, said, "Labor Day differs in every essential way from the other holidays of the year in any country. All other holidays are in a more or less degree connected with conflicts and battles, of strife and discord for greed and power." He is not completely right. Labor Day does commemorate conflicts and battles. By one estimate, they have claimed at least 700 American lives since the 1850s. Most were at the hands of private guards and militias, some by police officers and U.S. soldiers. Historians Philip Taft and Philip Ross count 160 occasions on which state or federal troops have intervened in labor disputes. It was on September 5th, 1882, that the first Labor Day March was held in New York City. It was designed as a show of strength by the Central Labor Council. But its organizers feared that the event might turn into a show of weakness. Many people were afraid to take the day off for fear that they might get fired. Writes Linda Stinson, former historian for the U.S. Department of Labor, in an article that has most certainly been taken down from the Labor Department website by now. When the parade began, only a handful of workers were in it, while hundreds of people stood on the sidewalk jeering at them. But then, slowly, they came. 200 workers and a band from the Jewelers Union showed up and joined the parade. Then came a group of bricklayers with another band. By the time they reached the park, it was estimated that there were 10,000 marchers in the parade in support of workers. Over the next decade, 23 states declared Labor Day a holiday. But it took the first nationwide strike in 1894 to make it a federal holiday. The strike started in Chicago, where workers making Pullman passenger cars protested a 1/3 cut in their pay. Within a month, the American Railway Union launched a nationwide boycott of trains with Pullman cars. Across much of the U.S., railroad traffic ground to a halt. President Grover Cleveland acted fast to bail out the bosses. Using the obstruction of U.S. mail as his excuse, he mobilized 12,000 federal troops. Cleveland said, "If it takes the entire Army and Navy of the United States to deliver a postal card to Chicago, that card will be delivered." Up to that point, the strike had been largely peaceful. But when troops invaded Chicago on Independence Day, they sparked 4 days of riots in which 700 rail cars were burned. In the midst of the mayhem, Cleveland was looking for a way to repair his frayed relationship with unions. In just 2 days, Congress unanimously passed a bill declaring the first Monday in September a national holiday. That was 128 years ago. Today, we celebrate Labor Day with cookouts and fireworks. We drive long distances for one last gasp of summer. Ironically, we mark the end of playtime and the resumption of our dreaded work. Unconsciously, though, you might say that we're celebrating the comforts that the labor movement has brought us. It's easy to forget that it took 100 years of struggle to achieve the Fair Labor Standards Act of 1938, which banned child labor, set the first minimum wage, and established our 40-hour work week. As the bumper sticker says, unions, the folks who brought you the weekend. I sometimes hear these days, even from progressive friends, that we no longer need labor unions. They achieved most of their goals in the 30s and 40s. Today, too many of them are corrupt and protect their own privileges and get in the way of getting work done. In a larger picture, though, I want to suggest a couple of reasons why unions are still important, even for a self-employed person like me. One reason is economic. Over the last 40 years, union membership has dropped by half to only 12% of American workers. It is likely not a coincidence that over that same period, average household income has stayed virtually flat, except, of course, for the richest 1%. Their share of the nation's income has doubled from 10% up to 20%. Writes the UU minister David Breeden, "The American labor movement is the best anti-poverty initiative in United States history. Unions work because they go to the root of the poverty problem. Instead of handing out gallon jars of mustard, they help human beings get paid fairly for a day's work." The other reason is spiritual. Whatever its shortcomings, organized labor has done more than almost any other social movement to push our UU principles into reality. In particular, justice and equity in human relations, and the inherent worth and dignity of every person. Writes Aaron McEmrys, a former union organizer who became a UU minister. Workers didn't risk everything for a 50-cent raise. Ultimately, the driving force behind any successful organizing campaign I've ever been part of is the need to be treated with respect and dignity. The need to have a voice in one's own working life. That is something people are willing to risk everything for. That's why In 1997, the UUA General Assembly endorsed greater protection of workers, including the right to organize and bargain collectively, protection from unsafe working conditions, and protection from unjust dismissal. Although you won't hear about it in the daily paper or the cable news, there is a lot to support these days. In the past 2 decades, the frontier of the labor movement has shifted to the working poor. A union coalition called Change to Win is organizing service industries like hotels, healthcare, and even fast food. They're bringing in workers who are heavily female, minority, and immigrant. They've been instrumental in raising minimum wages to $15 an hour in many parts of the country. So, this Labor Day, before we chow down on the grilled food of our choice, let us take a moment to raise a koozie to the folks who brought you weekends. Consider that our creature comforts may come less from the benevolence of corporations than from the courage and fortitude of generations of union people who worked for them while fighting for our rights. Ponder the spiritual vision of the Knights of Labor when they vowed, "Labor is noble and holy, to glorify God in its exercise, to defend it from degradation, to rescue from the toiler from the grasp of the selfish, is a work worthy of the noblest and best of our race." And now, I invite us all to rise in body or spirit and join in singing the longtime anthem of the U.S. labor movement to the tune of the Battle Hymn of the Republic, Solidarity Forever. When the union's inspiration through the workers' blood shall run, there can be no power greater anywhere beneath the sun. Yet the force on earth is weaker than the feeble strength of one, for the union makes us strong. Solidarity forever, solidarity forever, solidarity forever, for the union makes us strong. It is we who plowed the prairies, built the cities where they pay, cut the mines and built the workshops, and the miles of rail were laid. Now we stand outcast and starving against the wonders we have made, but the union makes us strong. Solidarity forever, solidarity forever, solidarity forever, for the union makes us strong. In our hands is placed the power greater than their hoarded gold, greater than the might of armies magnified 1,000-fold. We can bring to birth a new world from the ashes of the old, for the union makes us strong. Solidaridad para siempre, solidaridad para siempre, solidaridad para siempre, que viva nuestra unión. Solidarity forever.
So there's a spectrum of songs that are sung in the worship service, ranging from what I call funeral dirges on one hand to songs by Steve Brooks, led by him on the other hand. This is the extreme other hand. Thank you, Steve. This morning's service ends with the extinguishing of the chalice and these words, which we will say in union. As we leave this sacred place, may we carry the light within us out into the world and into the next weeks of our lives. Thank you. So please join us for lunch afterwards. This concludes our first service for the morning.